the next panel, we go from one digital health leader that's been around for decades, leading this community, to another in Don Jones, the person who got Qualcomm into the game of digital health and helped really create that entire ecosystem in San Diego County in the early 2000s that Eric Topol came into when he went from Cleveland Clinic to UCSD and began to see all this wireless healthcare stuff going on that Don and Qualcomm were putting together, and then wrote a nice little book about it called Creative Destruction of Medicine, and created a nice term about it called digital medicine, and that was the birth of digital healthcare. So in some ways we could say Don Jones is the godfather of digital healthcare. Hey Don, how you doing?
Hi, nice to be here.
Good to have you. So on that note, Don, we'll hand it off to you, and looking forward to this panel.
Well, welcome everyone, and look forward to the next few minutes we have with Dean and Pat. I'd like to introduce Dean from Information Mediary Corporation and Pat from Colgate-Palmolive. We'd look to have an interesting discussion, and maybe to kick it off, Dean, maybe you could give a little bit of background on IMC, which isn't a company I think a lot of people necessarily recognize the name of, and just talk about your journey and how you got to your career here today.
Sure, thank you. IMC is, we design and manufacture smart adherence packaging. So specifically packaging related to blistered medication and bottles. And the goal is that we track the dosing removal as patients remove them from those packages, safeguard that data, move it into our system, which we call CertiScan. And from that, we can provide all kinds of analyses and visualizations for different stakeholders to take action.
Fantastic. And Pat, Colgate-Palmolive is mostly known in the consumer space, but I understand you're working in the oral space, and there's some interesting technologies coming up. Maybe you could just describe a little bit about what your interest in digital health is.
Yeah, we're a 200-year-old company, so we've been around for a little bit of time. And first of all, let me thank you for having me. It was really terrific to be here. My first introduction to HitLab, so kind of exciting. But what we've learned, particularly through the pandemic, is the important role of consumer products in maintaining and improving the health and wellness of people around the globe. The lowly bar of soap has saved many a life lately, and washing your hands and making sure your oral health is maintained. So we've, and it's not just been since COVID, but we really are starting to think about our portfolio in a whole different way. And, at first, it's really the relationship between maintaining your oral health. It's one of the most fundamental things you can do to maintain your overall systemic health. Good oral health has been linked to lower infection rates, even COVID, better maintenance of diabetes, even the reduced risk of Alzheimer's, believe it or not, as if people with better oral health have a reduced risks. And what we find is that most people have two big issues with taking care of their oral health. One is they have no idea if they've done a good job. They brush their teeth and they think they did a good job, but they're not 100% sure. The other thing is they have no idea if a problem emerges. So it's like a black box. They go to the dentist, and it's probably why they're so fearful of the dentist, and they don't know what's going to happen. And so what we're starting to realize is that technology is finally enabling us to help the consumer with those two issues. Are they doing a good job, and do they have a problem emerging? We've always had great chemistry and biological solutions, but the idea of empowering consumers with real-time information right in the moment when they're brushing their teeth, that's going to help them make better decisions and take action when they need to do it. So I think the whole area of connected IT with biological and chemical solutions to health is going to be the key, that intersection. People willingly put toothbrushes in their mouth twice a day. They do it. I mean, any device company would be, so thrilled if people willingly use them, right? People willingly put a device in their mouth twice a day. And so what we've begun to think about is what else can we do with that between sensor miniaturization, camera systems, Bluetooth. This humble toothbrush can actually empower people with critical information they need to make sure they brush their teeth well, make sure all the plaque is removed, make sure they don't have inflammation, tooth decay, all the oral diseases you can think of. And we just are starting to realize over the last few years, maybe 5 years, that knowledge can really create this step change in oral health and ultimately overall health. And it really empowers consumers like, we've never really thought of before. So it's an exciting time for us, quite frankly.
Well, let's switch and talk a little, expand on that just a little bit. I'm going to come back to you, Dean, here and ask you to talk about the ecosystems you've already participated in. And I'm trying to get you to stretch beyond kind of a siloed solution that maybe where you started, and maybe you think well beyond that today. But I'm trying to think about over the next 3 to 5 years, what's the ecosystem of connected drugs look like from your perspective, and how does it grow? Who else are going to be partnering into that ecosystem?
Sure. First of all, with us, it's all about the packaging. And to date, we're building out our own system that brings in GMP and GCP through a cloud-based solution. Going forward, to your point, we're building, putting a huge amount of effort in our system, the CertiScan system, where we could essentially have other people utilize the systems they already have to benefit from our technology. So if you think of CROs, the sites that work at the site staff that work at sites, they have a lot of software they're used to using, IRT, EDC systems, and we're designing our system to essentially be the part of the iceberg that's falling below the water and letting the systems they already have on their desktop be above the water. So, these people are generally trained in all these systems. They're not technologists. They don't wake up in the morning, get excited to play with new technology. They just want things to work. And we're okay with that. We want to be able to make our technology work in the background, feed the solutions they already have, and give them this new adherence data that they don't have to date. Put it in front of them with the tools they have so they can make all kinds of interesting decisions. At the end of the day, the best part is no part at all.
So I understand you've been working in the clinical trial space. I assume you're also working in the commercial drug delivery space where people are prescribed drugs and take them at home to a degree. Do you see a day coming up when number one, that's connected drugs and the dispensed drugs are more the norm, number one, and number two, where's the Amazon reorder button? How come I can't just say I need some more?
Yeah, ultimately that's our goal, to go that far. Yes, we're in clinical trials right now. That's our main focus. But we do have a focus towards commercial, especially around our bottle, where you don't have to have as much custom packaging. And we're in that market. We're thinking more of the if you have elderly parents, you want them to use their medication in one of our devices. You can keep track of them. In our solution, they can be reminded. You could see how your aging mother and father are doing. You can keep on top of it. So that's really our next step. If moving away from clinical into commercial is kind of within the family ecosphere. Absolutely.
And Pat, I got to imagine a consumer products company loves the idea of a order some more product. So how does your ecosystem expand in the future? And I'm going to add one more question to the 2 questions that you said you're starting to solve, and that is, well, if I think I've got a problem in my mouth, what do I do next? Where do I go? Who do I call? What do I see?
Exactly.
Do I need to go see the dentist in order to find out whether I needed to see the dentist?
Right, exactly. So I'll start with the first one. We're really excited because we think this connected technology, just what Dean was talking about, really has the potential to change. It's so powerful. It has the potential to change everybody's lives, whether you live in the United States or whether you live in rural India. It really has the potential to change people's lives. So we're kind of imagining what's possible, right? So everything that can be measured is going to be measured in the future. And the idea that it becomes more accurate and more personalized is the key. So to your point, let's say you and your wife are measuring, you're getting information about the microbiome in your mouth, and Yours is built such that it's going to really promote caries. It's a certain cavity. So you're going to get cavities from that. Your wife's is going to promote gum disease. So different biofilms promote different diseases or lack thereof, hopefully. And so how do we start giving recommendations, right? How do we start saying, here's what you need to do. Here's the therapy you need to follow to make sure that you take care of those cavities, or you get rid of those cavities, or you stop them from happening, or you get rid of the gum disease. So all of a sudden becomes very unique and very personalized. And it also becomes, you start, instead of looking at points in time, you start to look at trends. So oral disease, probably just like any disease, doesn't happen overnight. But let's say you see a little blood in the sink, okay, or you see microscopic blood. Then you see blood in the sink. Then you start bleeding. Then you realize I need to go see the dentist because my gums are bleeding. Now you really have a problem. I'd love to give you a very commercially available therapy ahead of time that stops it where it started, which is at the microscopic blood level. So that's, and to say to you, hey, listen, maybe you should use a product that contains this type of ingredient because it'll help stop the stuff we're seeing, which is bleeding. You may not see it, but we see it. And we know as we start to integrate this information, we're going to get more personalized and we're going to get more accurate. And those are the keys to help you.
That makes great sense. And I'm just hoping that I can push the button on the end of my toothbrush and actually get the product show up on my door.
That's next. That's next. It's really easy, you know. So yeah, we're looking at a lot of the stuff that Dean's talking about auto refill and all that good stuff, you know. And so the people, it's just effortless to get your products.
Well, that's great. I'm sure Dean knows about some of the study, but there was a very large study done in 2014 that showed that in the pharmaceutical industry, the losses that show up due to failure to fill, failure to consume the drugs on the schedule that it was prescribed for, say 1 pill a day for 30 days. In other words, it gets dragged out longer than that. And then failure to refill. Those 3 failures or black holes are actually represent a business opportunity for pharma that's bigger than the entire pharma industry.
Wow.
So in other words, that whether it's adherence, which is often talked about from a clinical outcomes perspective, but frankly, the economic driver of adherence is more sales. And same thing applies to what you're working on, obviously, in the oral market. So I'm very much looking into the future where we have these larger ecosystems of connected products.
Yep. We actually own Hill's Science Diet and Prescription Diet. So we work through veterinarians when animals are sick, and compliance is our biggest challenge, is getting to people, you know, they'll buy the first bag, but the second, third, fourth bag. So how do we make that easy for consumers, is your point, so that all of us are patients, so that, you know, that it doesn't take any effort to get that next bag or that next bottle of pills show up at your door.
Well, my wife figured out that having the Amazon guy drop it off at the front door was a lot easier than picking it up at the pet food store. And
absolutely. So have many.
Well, thank you very much. I think our time is up. I really appreciate talking to both you and Dean and Pat. It was great.
Nice meeting you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.